Hi guys, welcome to Let's Talk About Ice on the couch. Now there's been a bit of a change due to technical issues that we're doing this actually only live stream and not on the radio tonight. So for those of you who are tuning in from Bow Desert, we do apologise for the not being on the radio, but we are live streaming. So we've got a good hour, and tonight on Let's Talk About Ice with Leanne on the couch, I've got George Patricky, who is our optimal health counsellor, and George has got a lot to talk about tonight, so we'll get started. But firstly, George, I'd just like to know a little bit about your history. How did you come to get to be part of Australian Anti-Ice, and tell us a little bit about yourself.
Bada bing, bada bang. Okay, so in terms of background, I actually was in the drug scene for about 7 years, and spent about 10 years working through my issues, and had a real heart to go back into the industry to make a difference. And I became a therapist about 25 years ago, and spent the last 25 years in counselling and running education programs, both for the government as well as non-profit organisations. And the last several years I've been building some programs through the Optimal Health Group to be able to resource our community. So that's kind of why we're here tonight, to talk to you and you listeners about the community development response to ice and other drugs, which is a partnership with the Optimal Health Group and the Australian Anti-Ice Campaign.
That's great, George. For those of you who have been our ever-going audience for the last couple of weeks, we have had testimonies of lived experience people, starting with our CEO and founder a few weeks ago. Andrea shared her story. And then we had the mother of Dwayne, or DJ we call him, one of our presenters, sharing her story of going through the journey with her son. And last fortnight we had the privilege and the honour of Andrea's daughter coming and sharing her story from her perspective. So we've had different perspectives. So I like tonight, I love it how you've come on board tonight, George. I really appreciate that. We appreciate that, because now we're looking at it from the health perspective and from the counselling perspective of family support. So yeah, so thank you for that, for sharing. And what else would you like to share with us?
It might be good to perhaps break down and give an overview of what we actually mean by the community development response to ice and other drugs, because in actual fact it's about resourcing and providing sustainable tools to local communities, because we believe in empowering communities to be able to intervene at the local level, because there are always resources and people able to respond, but often they don't know how. So what we offer is a three-pronged approach, a little bit like a tripod. A very important leg of that tripod is the education that the Australian Anti-Ice Campaign offers to high school students throughout the country, because prevention, as you would have heard from the previous sessions, is better than cure. And considering so many people are actually starting ice, you may have heard perhaps that between 2009 and 2014 we had about 200,000 people experimenting with ice, from Professor Degenhardt and Dr. Lani at the University of New South Wales, explaining the stats around that out of those people that have experimented and been using ice, about 60% actually become dependent. So when we actually look at that over a 5 or 6 year period, we're talking at about 44 people a day starting ice, and around about 25 of those are young.
Yes.
Now, this is the reason why the Australian Anti-Ice Campaign has an extremely passionate approach of taking this to young people so they can make informed choices, because they actually do not know the risks primarily. They may have heard something about ice, but they don't really know what's in it. So the educators that go into school actually have lived experience, but most importantly, they have skills. They have undertaken our 2-day intensive dual diagnosis training that I run. So all of our workers are on the same page, because they've all undertaken evidence-based best practice in drug and alcohol and mental health. Then, with in-house training on top of that, that Andrea takes them through, then we send them out into the schools. So they bring skills and lived experience to actually explain and actually show young people what the risks actually are. So that's the first leg of the tripod. And education is extremely important. Now the second leg of the tripod is about empowering the loved ones, the families and members of the community.
Before you go on there, George, can I just have with a break there with the empowering?
This is a commercial break.
It is commercial break.
Brought to you by our sponsors.
Sponsors. With the empowering, I'd like to just make a point that you can, if you are in need of help, you can call us on 07565 6063. If you are struggling in ice addiction yourself, or you have a family member or a friend struggling with ice addiction, we will set you up with buddies and also get you in touch with Family Support Network on that tripod system that we're talking about here. So, and if you're listening for the first time, also check out our website. It's www.australianantiicecampaign.org.au. It's a long name, but it's one name never forget. www.australianantiicecampaign.org.au. So I just thought I'd give that little commercial break. So we've talked about step one, of the tripod system. Now step two, the empowering. How does that work?
Okay, so in step two, it's about community empowering. We often refer to it as community development. The idea is that people have a relationship with the drug user. They are best placed to deliver that brief intervention when it's delivered by love and care and genuine concern. We give people tools through an online training program called Chemically Speaking 2. It's 2 hours and 15 minutes of online training where people learn about the underlying issues that drive addictive behaviours. They'll see and understand the cycle of addiction and how people progress from experimentation to full-blown addiction, and the areas of their life that are decompensated and impacted. And then of course they'll learn about the stages of change, of how people actually move forward. The idea of that program is to empower parents, student welfare coordinators at schools, student guidance officers, teachers, coaches, ministers from churches, even workplace supervisors and managers, to be able to intervene in their specific location. They already have a relationship with the person. You don't want to grab them by the throat and drag them to a drug and alcohol service when there's no relationship there. They have that relationship. There is trust established and there is respect there. Those people with the right tools can remove the emotion that clouds their judgment and their ability to communicate and bring accurate information. How? By helping them to weigh up the costs versus the benefits. And so we actually show people how to do that through our Chemically Speaking 2. And you will see links to that both from the Australian Anti-Ice Campaign website as well as the Dual Diagnosis Training website. So that's why we have a website, and you may be able to see it from here, called samhi.online. SAMHI stands for SAMHI, Substance Abuse and Mental Health Interventions.online. There you will see links to these services. The first one is Chemically Speaking 2. That is for family members, coaches, workplace supervisors, teachers, etc., to be able to do their online 2-hour program to know how to intervene. That's the second leg. That's community empowering. The third leg is for frontline workers. This is people who are already working in the industry. Counsellors, psychologists, nurses, healthcare professionals, all people to get on board to receive skills in advanced psychotherapeutic techniques to actually help people with treatment and working through the underlying issues. And those people are in a prime position to set up what we call family support groups. So you will read about family support on our websites, because we do offer online family support as well as over the phone, but our longer term strategy is actually to build family support live groups in each location from people who have done their dual diagnosis training. That's our longer term plan. And partnering with that, we have what we call buddies and sponsors. These are people who have lived experience that have put up their hand because they've worked through their issues, they've done their dual diagnosis training, and they say, I want to grab someone by the hand.
Yeah.
I want to help someone. Great, no worries. So through our central number that we've given you that's on the website, we release buddies to have a cup of coffee with someone at a coffee shop or wherever.
Yeah.
And they'll talk to the person that's using drugs, they'll be able to freely ask questions, they'll help them to weigh up the costs versus the benefits. And if someone says, you know something, I'm out of here, I want help. How do I move forward? No worries. We'll help you to set up the tripod of support. The tripod of support is the counsellor, one leg, to work through the underlying issues.
Yes.
Attending meetings, which is the other leg, so they gain support, a place where they give and receive. And the third leg is having a sponsor or a buddy by your side. Someone who's going to be there for you, a bro or a broess.
Yeah.
And that's our strategy. They're the long-term sustainable resources that we build in local communities. And that's what we mean when we use the expression, the community development response to ice and other drugs. It's all about releasing the local community to act. Why? Because it's all hands on deck.
It is.
I don't have to tell you what you already know. Through all the sessions you've been witnessing with Let's Talk About Ice, you've been hearing about the increase in substance abuse through the Justice Department and through the health services. If you've had a chance to look at the Queensland Health Report in 2017, you'll see an exponential growth in mental health presentations and emergency department presentations of people using ice. And I mean exponential growth in the last few years. Why? You've been hearing about this over the sessions with the purity that's gone up from 17% in 2013 to around about 80% now.
That's shocking.
So the harm that I would see 25 years ago as a therapist, which would take years to damage the melon and the body, we're now seeing in just months.
And that's because it is laced with the poisons such as acetones, Drano, things like that, and even just normal drugs. There's no normal drugs. Sorry, let me rephrase that. Any other drugs like weed, ecstasy that the young people and people are experimenting with, they're lacing them with ice as well as these other poisons as well, and that's why the statistics are probably going up as well. With what you were saying, George, I've got a question for you. You're talking about dual diagnosis for the layperson. Explain to us exactly what dual diagnosis is.
So essentially, dual diagnosis is a combination of substance abuse and mental health issues, as you can see here on the brochure. So it's both problems simultaneously existing. Now, traditionally over the years, when people have presented with complex drug and alcohol issues, they would often have underlying issues that have drove them into the drug scene to present with such complex problems. But unfortunately with ice, you don't really need a lot to drive you. It's because the capacity to hijack the reward system of the brain is so great that you don't need deep underlying issues to escape from to get caught up in the drug scene. You just need to understand that the dopamine and the other chemicals that we make in our brain, that gets hijacked by the methamphetamine that releases unnatural amounts of this reward chemical in our brain, and of course naturally the person wants to repeat that experience, which of course only happens the first few times. They think it's going to be like that for the rest of their lives, and of course they get let down and it doesn't happen, and they spend the rest of their life chasing this fantasy and this illusion. Why? Because unfortunately the methamphetamine damages three key components in the brain. What we call the machinery. The melon actually has a factory that actually makes the chemicals. We call that factory vesicles. So we actually damage the production of the chemical, and that's bad enough. But secondly, the receptors which is on the other side of the brain cell, which is supposed to take the chemical in the brain and use it, they get smashed, they withdraw. And they're no longer present to be able to accept the chemical that we even make. And the third and most important is the transporting pump that recycles the chemical, that gets smashed to pieces because the methamphetamine damages it and it no longer works, which means the person is left permanently damaged. But what does that actually mean in English? It means they're left feeling shit. That's the bottom line.
It is bottom line, absolutely.
So, and when a person is feeling like that, what do? They need to use more chemicals to feel okay. So it creates this vicious cycle. And the more chemicals are used, the more damage is done to the machinery. And unfortunately, even when the person stops, they still feel flat. How long? Well, the sad news is that all drugs can damage the machinery, but methamphetamine is notorious for damaging it a lot more severe. So to rebuild that machinery, it could take around 18 months, which means the person's doing all the work, they're going to counselling, they're attending meetings, they're doing all that they can to rebuild their lives, and they're not getting any rewards for it in terms of how they feel. And that's why the recovery road is so hard for these people. And we need to build a solid, safe structure around them to keep them safe and to keep them alive. That's why we talk about the tripod of support. They can't do it alone because they feel shit and they're not getting any benefits from working and interacting with their families and doing all the things that we normally feel good about. They're not even getting any benefits. They're doing all the work without the benefits. So they need to keep doing the work by faith, so to speak, looking for the long-term benefits when finally they will feel normally again.
And that's where the buddy system comes in, is very important, because the buddy system it's a friend somebody who's lived the experience, gets alongside them and says, hey mate, Chicky, I've been there, I know how you feel. You can talk to each other on a deeper level. It's like gives you a visa into their life, so to speak, doesn't it, George? That you can get alongside them and say, hey, I know you don't feel well enough today to get out, but I'm here to make you do it because somebody did that for me, and now I can help you. And in turn, they can one day be able to help somebody. It gives them a purpose as well, to be able to get out there and get alongside, know that they can one day become a buddy themselves. So there's no university on earth like the School of Hard Knocks in that respect for the buddy system. Okay, so that's the brain, and thankfully our brain is like a plasticity. I remember doing this at dual diagnosis with George, remembering you saying that the brain is plastic. The melon, of course, and it does after a period of 12 months to 2 years starts to heal itself. But that first 18 months is the most difficult, as you said, isn't it?
Everyone's different. We're generalising here. It all depends on how much a person's been using and for how long.
Yes.
But the bottom line is, a person needs to rebuild that machinery, and we actually teach people about optimal health. So we go beyond the normal functioning and teach people principles so they can actually rebuild the process quicker. What are those tools? Well, stuff that we've been doing for thousands of years, but we no longer do it anymore because of the 21st century. We've all been thrown into the offices, schools and factories. We are no longer doing the agricultural lifestyle that we used to do to actually do the lifestyle things that the body needs. For example, water.
Not coffee.
Water. You can imagine, right, a person's using stimulants. What do stimulants do? They increase the metabolism. What happens when you increase the metabolism? You lose more fluid than you take in. That's why they're always complaining about a dry mouth and getting teeth problems and all the rest of it. But unfortunately, it does serious damage to the brain. And that dehydration causes migraines, headaches, kidney stones, all sorts of horrific problems. So they can speed up the healing process by understanding that 76% of our body is made up of water, and at the cellular level, it's about 90%. How many days without this and we're dead? This is a test now.
3.
3 days.
That's it.
Okay. So you can see how important water is.
Yes.
What's the next thing that's important, Leanne? I'm now testing you.
Oh, now he's testing me. The next thing is good eating and a good diet.
So the reality is, do you grow your own vegetables and fruits? I don't. And we all rely on, the conventional kind of supermarkets to get our foods. And with the farming methods, a lot of those nutrients are actually depleted. So we're only getting a fraction of what we used to get 100 years ago. But why is that a problem, Leanne?
I think it's because of all this, what's in the soil these days. It's not very helpful, and it's very difficult to get onto proper organic foods.
But why is that a problem for us?
Because we're industrialised. You keep telling me, George. Am I on the right train?
Yeah, that's cool. So the reason why I'm asking Leanne to contribute here is because Leanne's done the training, and for you to be able to learn some things about nutrition that we've all had to learn.
Yes.
See, we need more than just the basics.
Oh,
there are certain things we cannot do without. You would have heard of the B vitamins, for example, and zinc and magnesium. It's not negotiable. These things aren't optional extras. The body needs this stuff, and without it, it doesn't actually work. Let me give you an example. You would have heard of brain chemicals that they talk about: serotonin, dopamine, norepinephrine, GABA, acetylcholine. These chemicals we make for our moods and our emotions. Question: what are they actually made from? These chemicals we make in the factory, what do we make them from? We use amino acids, vitamins and minerals. So if we're deficient, we're going to be struggling to make these brain chemicals. And that's why we thank God for people like Dr. William Walsh in his book Nutrient Power, who trains doctors in Australia to talk about this brain health and how to restore the brain health. And whilst they might use pharmaceuticals where they need to, they will always try to use natural substances first. Why? Because the principle in medicine is you use the least toxic method to heal the body. And we will try always to use the natural things. So nutrition is not an optional extra. It is essential for us to function and feel okay. In other words, it's part of the healing process. And it's important for all of us, by the way, not just for people who are recovering from substance abuse. The next thing that's really important, of course, is exercise. Now, when we're talking about exercise, are we talking about Olympic Games?
No, of course not Commonwealth Games. No,
what are we talking about?
Just simple walking, fresh air, half an hour a day at the minimal, and getting out there and just using those body muscles.
Why is it important, exercise?
I think it gets the blood pumping.
Good.
Yeah, good answer.
That's what we're testing Leanne here. I'm putting her under pressure.
Yeah, just put me on the spot. This was not planned.
This wasn't planned, by the way.
It wasn't.
But the idea is that, it's true, we're not talking about Commonwealth Games and going to the gym 5 days a week. Really, honestly, what we're talking about, transporting blood from head to toe to nourish every cell. No cell in your body can function without blood, obviously, because without blood you die. And there are two things in your blood that you desperately need. One is oxygen. 4 minutes without oxygen, you're dead. So clearly, if you can get oxygen from head to toe, your body's going to love you for it. And it takes around about 10,000 steps, which is roughly about 7 kilometres, to transport blood. In other words, oxygen to every cell. That's what we mean by exercise, getting out and about. And that's why at the park sometimes you'll see the signs, have you walked your 10,000 steps?
Yes.
So they're trying to get that message out now. So please be aware of that. Exercise is about transporting blood from head to toe. It takes about 7 kilometres, 10,000 steps to transport blood from head to toe. And the other thing that's in blood, of course, is nutrients.
Yes.
Without nutrients, your cells don't function. So you need to be able to transport blood, which contains oxygen and nutrients, so your cells are healthy. The next thing that's important is grounding. Can you tell us about grounding?
Grounding is like a discipline thing.
Walking
on the ground. And even bare feet. It's really good. I've used this experiment and it's worked for me when I've had jet lag. You take your shoes and socks off, you stand on terra firma, grass, soil, and you close your eyes, you look up into the sun for a couple of minutes, closing your eyes of course, and that redoes your body clock. And I found that has helped with jet lag in the past. So there's something to do, there's something in grounding.
So look, many civilizations around the globe, it's been part of their culture, indigenous peoples all around the world. Even in Switzerland, it is a culture for them to go for a walk barefoot in the morning. But we didn't know the technology behind that until several years ago, probably about 20, 30 years ago, with Dr. Sinatra and many others showing that when you walk barefoot on the ground, the electrons from the earth transfer into the body.
That's it.
They attach to the free radicals, that's the leftovers by the way, from the metabolism, and we eliminate them. Now this is the reason why we encourage people to have antioxidants. things like vitamin C from oranges, blueberries, acai berries, aloe vera juice, goji berries. Why do we encourage people to eat those things? Because those foods are good for us.
I know, because they're very good.
Love it. That's gold.
I try.
She couldn't resist.
I'm very trying.
That's gold. So the point is, the electrons in those foods attach to the free radicals. That's why we ask people to eat quality foods with antioxidants in them, because they're good for the body. The earth does the same, and it's free. And that's why we encourage people to walk barefoot on the grass,
Yes.
the soil, and most importantly, the sand on the beach, because it's got a little bit of water, and it's the best conductor. Sorry, carpet and wood doesn't work.
No, it doesn't, and that's why we're healthier up here on the Gold Coast, because we walk a lot on the sand.
Which brings us to the next point.
The sun.
Why is that important?
Oh, the sun has vitamin D.
Yep.
And that's very, very important for the is it the regeneration of cells?
Well, every function in the body.
Function, yes.
Because in fact, vitamin D is not even a vitamin. Vitamin D is actually a hormone that we synthesize many metabolic functions underneath the skin. And there is Dr. Once, who travels the world as a photologist, training doctors on this issue. See, a lot of people think the information about vitamin D is new, but in actual fact, there's 34,000 articles written about vitamin D over the last 120 years, and there are about 372 medical journals that explain that vitamin D deficiencies actually cause serious mental health problems and physical health problems.
Wow.
For example, people would have heard of seasonal affective depression. Countries like Norway and England, which don't have the sun for 6 months of the year, get serious mental health problems at the highest rates of schizophrenia in the world, by the way. But the point is, it's not just mental health problems that it causes serious physical diseases too. Now, unfortunately, we went too far with the slip, slop, slap, because people were frying like chicken on the beach for 12 hours. As a knee-jerk reaction to the baked bean chicken frying on the beach, we went to the opposite extreme, and now we say to people, you can't even walk in the sun for 12 minutes, unless you've got sunscreen and a hat. Now, seriously, if you're going to be in the sun, common sense, wear a hat, wear long sleeves. But if you're going to be in the sun for short times, like half an hour, very few people are going to get sunburnt in half an hour. If you've got extremely sensitive white skin, fine, make it 10 minutes. And then after a few weeks, make it 15 minutes. And then 20 minutes. You can desensitize the skin slowly and sensibly. But the point is, vitamin D deficiencies cause serious mental health and physical diseases, including things like depression. So it's part of the healing process. How much do we need? About roughly half an hour in summer and about an hour in winter. So we used to do that, remember, naturally when we live in an agricultural society, but we're not doing it now because we're all cooped up in buildings. So I encourage you to eat your lunch break outside.
Yes, and go for walks. Very important. I tell you what, George has got me in the palm of his hand listening to him with all this valuable information. Absolutely enthralled by it.
Look, I can't even do this stuff myself every day, but I try. I know it needs to be done, and I push myself to eat my lunch outdoors, to get my vitamin D, to walk, to drink my water. I have to work hard at doing this. It doesn't come naturally, but the rewards are great.
Yes.
And it especially is important for people that have damaged their body with substance abuse, with stimulants and alcohol and other drugs, to be able to recover quicker if they know how to fix the body. That's why we teach optimal health in the training programs that we do. For example, chemically speaking too, we talk about that. The dual diagnosis training, we talk about that. Why? So we can arm and prepare our community with these resources to protect themselves and their loved ones.
Absolutely, so important. And guys, if you've got any questions, I know our wonderful Andrea is in the background answering many of your shout outs and questions. We are unable to have a screen in front of us tonight, but I'd like to say hi to all our locals and regulars that are tuning in right now. And thank you for listening. And I hope so far it's been very educational for all of us actually out there. And just remember that if you do have any questions, if you know of anybody suffering in drug addiction, especially ice, please give us a call, 07565 6063.
And it's on the website too,
and
by
it's
the
on
way,
the website, yes, which is... What's the website, George? You
Ah,
tested me.
www.australianantiicecampaign.org.au. Log on and you'll see many of our resources explained there, and also links to the dual diagnosis training website. which has resources, and the online information called samhe.online, which stands for Substance Abuse and Mental Health Interventions.online. samhe.online, which has resources that people can tap into. Excellent. And the dual diagnosis training, by the way, that we do live to equip workers, that's going to be online very, very soon in the next couple of weeks. So that's, all the editors have nearly completed the work, and the reason why we've done that is because we can't get live in locations that are remote around Australia.
That's right.
The online is going to be able to release this information to frontline workers to give them tools to reach more people, to help more people and equip more workers.
Yeah, with you saying that, with Australian Anti-Ice campaign, recently we were up in Cairns and attended Cairns State High School, so hi to anybody there. And plus we've been called out to many rural areas in Australia, so we need to get the dual diagnosis online for that very reason, don't we? Because we're starting up groups across Australia. And guys, also on our website, if you feel that you can donate or even sign our petition for the government to see that what we're doing is proactive work, not reactive work, on the website you'll see a petition to sign as well, and you can also join at the Army by giving, and simply, what is it, $10 a month can educate, $5 a month can educate one child against in ice awareness and education. So it would be great if you could get on the website, have a look, www.australianantiicecampaign.org.au, and that's great to hear that that the dual diagnosis is becoming online, because it's more practical and can reach more people, as you say, in rural areas that are suffering the most with the ice epidemic. And we recently had statistics with the wastewater, George. Would you like to talk a bit about that and how that has really just shown us just the increase of the drug use of ice?
Yeah, in my dual diagnosis training, I have several slides from Professor Mueller's work at the University of Queensland. And they started off with a couple of sites, but they've now got 52 around Australia to measure wastewater. And they look at substances like methamphetamine, which is of course the ice, and alcohol and other drugs that people use, to look at patterns and to look at how drug use is increasing or not increasing in certain locations, and some are worse than others. Yeah. And unfortunately, we've seen a significant increase in methamphetamine over the last 5 years.
Wow.
And it only tells us what we already know, because the data, for example, with probation and parole have been showing us there have been a significant amount of breaches for methamphetamine and an increase over the last 3 years. Juvenile justice, exactly the same. And if we can't sustain these people in the justice system, what are we going to do with them? Put them in jail? Well, that's not going to work. You know, I think we all know that people don't receive quality rehabilitation in jail. So to keep them on probation and parole, we need to be able to make sure they've got resources and programs, and if they're breaching it through the increase of methamphetamine, these people then are going to go back in.
That's right.
And so the justice system can't sustain them. The health system is imploding. We've had significant amount of increase. So as you can see, it's all hands on deck.
It is, absolutely.
Now you might ask the question, well, what do they do in schools? What do people get out there and scare the kids? Is that what you do? Well, actually, it's not like that. A lot of people might think we go in there and we scare the kids with these graphic images, but can we just clarify what we do so that you know what you're supporting? We actually have people with lived experience who get quality training and actually show kids not only the items that are actually in the methamphetamine, like the Drano, the sulfuric acid, the acetone, the anhydrous ammonia, and of course the active ingredients, pseudoephedrine and so forth. These chemicals are all dangerous individually, let alone all coupled together. Wow. Kids actually see that, and they need to understand that the graphic images that we sometimes show is coupled with quality education. And that's what we do. We release people with lived experience who said, we've gone down this road and it nearly killed us. Before you go down this road, you better know what you're going to get yourself into. And they actually see the harm. That's what we mean by education in schools, yeah?
Yep, that's right. And the lived experience, people even show their wounds and share their life. And it's very hard for them sometimes to share their experiences of losing loved ones themselves and having their own experience of losing, even showing scars on their own bodies and stuff from ice addiction. And so they talk about that as well as what's in the ice and other drugs that they're experimenting with, just to bring it home, to show, so that they can, like you said, can make that right decision when they do come across it. And they also give them strategies, George, of how to say no, not even once. And that's our catch cry, not even once.
And that's part of what we've learned over the last 30, 40 years of school-based drug education. That needs to be built into the curriculum, so it's reinforced with refusal skills, yes, self-esteem, all those social issues. It's all built into the training and education. And people will often say to me, but George, aren't you just scary? Isn't it just scare tactics? It's actually coupled with a comprehensive approach, similar to road traffic danger. You would have heard of the Queensland Traffic Offenders Program that we started about 12 years ago with my colleagues and I. We've had about nearly 10,000 people, probably over 10,000 people go through that now in the last 12 years. It's well accepted in the industry with the magistrates because we've had tremendous results and very low recidivism of reoffending, because people have comprehensive quality information, not just about drug and alcohol, but they have good legal information from the solicitors that come in. They've got Wayne coming in from the Spinal Injury Association, who was crippled by a drink driver, and he says, this is what happened to me. This is what you can do if you drink. And so Wayne shares his testimony. So it's not a graphic image where he's trying to terrify people or make them feel guilty. He's just simply saying, if you drink and drive, this is what can happen. This is just the reality. We're saying the same thing. If you go down this road, this is just what happens. Be aware of the risks and the consequences, so you're making informed choices. Does that make sense?
It does. I think it makes sense to me. Yeah. It makes sense to the common person.
Yeah.
And
so we're not just trying to scare people and say no to drugs. It's much more comprehensive than that. We're trying to give people wisdom and insight and an understanding. What are the harms? What can happen if you go down this road? If your brain gets hijacked very quickly, which it does, what does the road back look like? Bloody hard work. Yeah. Because your neurotransmitters can take around 18 months and the receptors and the transporting pump to rebuild. Do you really want to go down that road? And
it's a very much a proactive approach rather than reactive. Now, we do need rehabs and detox units. I'm not saying we don't, but to have that proactive approach will then cut off the demand, which will lower the supply, and I think will help them, people be able to say no when it comes across their path, because they don't want to do that to their bodies. Simple as that.
Just wondering, are there any questions at the moment that you're getting that you'd like us to respond to at the moment?
There's a question about coffee.
We've just got a question coming through now.
About drinking coffee while you're in recovery.
Okay.
Some people are saying that they're feeling, like they're on ice again.
Stimulants, unfortunately, have a way of triggering other stimulants. So if a person's recovering from something like methamphetamine, which is a very powerful stimulant, when they use coffee and they haven't been drinking coffee for a while because they're trying to recover, even one cup of coffee can cause heart palpitations, elevate their heart rate, their blood pressure and so forth. So people need to be very, very sensible. Some people are not sensitive to caffeine, some people are. At the end of the day, if you have a cup of coffee and you notice that it's increased your blood pressure, or it's making it difficult to sleep, or you might find any trembling, anything like that, seriously your system is become so sensitized to the stimulants that it's no longer advisable for you to have any stimulants at all, including coffee. So be aware of that. Some people are more sensitive than others.
Can you talk about the lacing of ice with marijuana and ecstasy? What's happening?
Okay.
Earlier, you want to just repeat what you said earlier?
I said earlier that marijuana is being laced with ice. Ecstasy is being laced with ice. It's cut with ice, sorry. It's being cut with ice. So would you like to explain a bit more about that, George?
So by people smoking the cannabis, the marijuana, and having it laced, and it's basically been sprinkled with methamphetamine. If people smoke it, then they inhale also the methamphetamine. They get a stronger experience. they keep on going back to this cannabis, and eventually they said, well, actually, if you want a stronger experience, you've got to now go to the ice, mate, because this cannabis is just not strong enough with just sprinkles in it. Here, we can give you the real stuff. And this is how the people getting attracted to that type of a rush, and they're getting the transition from cannabis to the methamphetamine, which is 80% pure.
Wow, that's scary. That's just very scary.
And the party pills.
And
Party pills.
party pills.
Well, another problem. At high schools, you'll hear kids talking about, hey, mate, have this party drug, this pinger. Well, what's in it? It's a party drug. It just makes you feel good. Don't worry, it'll be fine. Yeah, but what's in it? I don't know. It just makes you feel good. Just have some, mate. You'll be right. Yeah, but what's in it? So they don't ask the questions because honestly, a lot of them don't even know. No. So they're promoting these drugs amongst each other, saying, but it's just a pinger, mate. You'll be fine. And when they're asked what's in it, they'll say, oh, I don't know. It's okay. But what's in it actually is, in fact, usually a small amount of MDMA, which is methylene dioxymethamphetamine, and a whole lot of other drugs. Now, MDMA technically is a smorgasbord of two drugs: methylene dioxy, which is a hallucinogen, and methamphetamine, which is ice. So with the ecstasy, you're getting two drugs, and they can't always get methylene dioxy. They'll substitute with PCP, DMT, many other hallucinogens, whatever they can get their hands on. Sometimes they'll even have to substitute with ketamine, which is a very powerful horse tranquilizer.
Wow. And
it's great for a 400-kilo horse. It doesn't do much for a 40-kilo kid, and they end up dropping and overdosing. See, our kids don't know this. They don't know what's inside these pingers, these safe party drugs. It's actually MDMA, and probably not more than about 15%. Sometimes maybe 40%. But the rest of it is all these other cocktails of shit that they put in, and it is really dangerous. Just like they cut the methamphetamine, they also cut the ecstasy as well. And they can use talcum powder, bicarbonate soda, Epsom salts, whatever shit white stuff they've got lying around, including glass fillers.
Glass fillers?
You know, people laugh when I tell them that. Hey, get out of here, George, you're hallucinating. Maybe you're just saying that, talking through the nostrils just to scare me. Look, I had no idea. I was injecting this shit, and I had no idea that I was injecting glass fillers into my brain. You know when I found out? When I was working in Supreme Court cases, and manufacturers would tell me, of course we put it in, George. It cuts the stomach linings in the brain vascular system. It makes the drug absorb better. And I freaked out saying, what? I was injecting this stuff. I had no idea. I was dealing this shit. I mean, I was involved in this stuff. Can you edit that last part? And I had no idea. So how are we supposed to know? Nobody told us. And this is what we're putting in our melon.
Oh my gosh.
So see, a lot of our kids are putting this stuff in their body, believing that it's safe. Because what they say to them, hey mate, this ice it's safe, mate, it's pure, it's 80% pure, mate. And then when they hear the word pure, they actually think it means safer, when in actual fact it's 80% more potent because of the intense drugs that they use, such as sulfuric acid. That's in Drano, hydrochloric acid, anhydrous ammonia, acetone, and even the stuff that they clean the roads with, the toluene. I mean,
really?
Seriously, these kids are putting this stuff in their bodies, and that's what they call safe. Hello? Yeah. Unless they know that, how are they going to be able to put the brakes on when someone says, hey, you want to taste this stuff, mate? What is it? It's ice, mate. She said, hey, wait a minute, I heard about that. I had the Australian Anti-Ice campaign coming into my school, and they told me there's Drano in that shit. Bullshit. Let's log on, mate. Let's log on and have a look.
Yeah.
You see, and that's how they're going to be able to have some resources and tools to say no. You see that?
I can see that. I can see the passion too coming from you. You're fired up there, George.
Oh yeah, well, I'm starting to get out of control. Eh?
We are fired up.
I'm nearly hallucinating here.
No, not at all. But George is so fired up probably because he has lived experience himself. He knows the dangers of it. He's been down that road. We've got people that speak regarding that. And guys, www.australianantiicecampaign.org.au for more information. It gives you phone numbers like 07 5665 6063 that you can call if you have anyone that's suffering that you know from ice addiction. And I think we've only got about a few minutes left on air. George, I can't believe the time has gone. So in 5 minutes.
So just in case there's any other questions, Andrea, you just throw them at us if you need any. But in the meantime, perhaps to understand why we're also passionate is because we've got lived experience and we've actually buried people that we love. I've had to take 2 funerals myself of clients that I was working with, and the families wanted me to take the service. I didn't want to do it. It's pretty traumatic to stand up there, but you know, I love these guys, and the families knew I loved them, and the clients loved me, and you feel that pain. I buried people in my own family, and that pain stays with you. Every human life is precious. So yeah, I do actually get pretty worked up when I stand up and talk about this sort of stuff, because you know, that pain goes on for generations. I'm still reeling from the pain that I went through several years ago in 2004.
Looks like we've got a question here, George.
Yeah, we've got 2. The first one is, why is it that this program is not taken up by every school?
Well, we're trying to, but each school has their own resources and they have to find out about it. So technically it's up to you to get to the student in the parent and teacher associations, talk to your principals, talk to the student welfare coordinators, talk to the student the counsellors, the guidance officers, explain to them there is a good program that we can bring into the school, because schools have a budget to not only provide curriculum-based school drug education, but to also bring experts, and they can use that budget to fund us to provide this expert information. So it's coupled with lived experience and evidence-based best practice, quality education for these kids. So please, talk to your principals.
I just want to put a plea out to parents to approach your principals, approach the student welfare officers
and the parent-teacher
chaplains and the parent-teacher association. Approach them and say how important it is, because you want your kids to have that informed choice. You don't want to have to be burying your child or having to visit them in hospital or having them overdose or deal with
you would have heard
addiction.
how many kids dropped a few weeks ago. Not just on the Gold Coast, but even in Cairns and in other locations. This stuff's happening all the time, mate. You know, we're sick of seeing this stuff, and you know, we're really motivated. So help us get into your schools. We care about our kids. And the Australian Anti-Ice campaign is doing a tremendous job in educating these people, and I'm focused on the Optimal Health Group, providing resources and tools for parents, teachers, coaches, supervisors, managers, frontline people that can help their employees or their loved ones. So we've got one more question by the looks of it.
We're going to be having forums in Melbourne. Can you please mention what the forums are for?
The purpose of the forums. By the way, we said the 3 legs in the community development response to ice and other drugs. One is the Australian Anti-Ice campaign. We've explained that. The other is forums. Why do we do forums? Because we want to show parents and members of the community what we're teaching their kids in the school. The forum will give them the tools and the resources and mobilise them into action. Forums are not just about sharing their pain. We have a resource for that called our family support. So when you log onto our family support, you can do it online, over the phone, and have live groups. You can share your story. We'll give you tools and resources. They're free. We email them to you. We give you resources, but the forum is to provide sustainable solutions. It's to show the community this is how you respond, and we show you the chemically speaking 2 and the dual diagnosis training, and which of course is the 3rd arm, which is our frontline workers are educated in specialised drug and alcohol and mental health. So the 3rd leg is the dual diagnosis training. So the 2nd leg is the public forum to release and demonstrate and show what the sustainable resources actually are. So there are our 3 legs.
Yep, absolutely fantastic. Look, George, I want to thank you so much from the depths of our heart for coming in and sharing all this valuable information for us. And like I said, guys, if you've got any more questions, please continue to write them in. We'll answer them as best we can. And also through the week, you can call us on 075 665 6063 or go on our website www.australianantiicecampaign.org.au. And I think we're finishing up now.
Have we finished with the questions?
Have we finished?
Put a call out if anybody has
Is there any other questions, any concerns that you've got? We just want to make sure we've covered all the necessary information, because at the end of the day, this is for you. This is to be able to support you and to resource you. And it doesn't end here. Please remember, as Leanne just explained, our emails and our phone numbers are there on our websites. We're here to help you. Even when we shut this down in a minute, you can still email us. We're still there for you and guide you with whatever resource and help that you need.
Yes, and please share this page, guys. This will be on our Facebook page. Go to Australian Anti-Ice Campaign Facebook page, like us, share this message and share previous ones that have been up the last few weeks, because you don't know whose life you could be saving by sharing these Let's Talk About ICE programs. And tonight was one of the most valuable ones. It's good to hear about other people going through this and know that you're not alone. You're not alone if you're travailing through this a horrible epidemic, even as a family member. You're not alone. We've got family support there for you. And with what George has shared tonight is absolutely treasure. And you can listen to it again, get more information, and ring us. And if you have any questions, and George is just absolutely wonderful. We love having him on board. He's been on board with Andrea since the beginning, and has such passion.
It's all about partnerships.
It is.
You know,
it is.
Right around the
Absolutely.
country, we're building partnerships and strategic alliances.
Yes.
Why? I can't do it alone. I can't have any impact by myself. Australian Anti-Ice Campaign can't do it alone. We all need to work together. We need the community to take responsibility for their own local area by reaching out to their kids. We will give you the tools to do this. You're not on your own. We give you the resources, we give you the tools, but we need you to get involved. Please don't pass the buck anymore.
No.
Put up your hand, get involved. We'll show you how to intervene, but we need you to partner with us.
Yes.
This is strategic alliances and partnerships, and it's all hands on deck. Is that okay?
It is all hands on deck. No egos
So it's
here.
not a guilt trip here, okay? It's just saying we all need to work together here.
So that we can lower this epidemic in Australia. So thank you very much for your time, George.
It's a pleasure, Leanne.
It's been an absolute pleasure
Thank you for listening and for joining us.
And remember, guys, as we say here, Anti-Ice
One more
Campaign.
commercial break.
One more commercial break. We'll say it together. Not
even once.
Not even once.
.com.
Thanks, guys, for listening.
Good night.
Till next fortnight. Bye now.